Alright, so you'll probably hear me say this for the next one or two videos I make that have to do with Paizo products. So if you've been watching any of my videos related to tabletop RPGs, you know that I've been mostly focusing on D&D and Tales of the Valiant, which is a 5e variant. However, playing the Cosmere TTRPG, which borrows the 3-action economy from Pathfinder, got me really interested in checking out the different Paizo RPGs. Additionally, I got really into it because of Starfinder. Throughout my life, my first love was sci-fi before it was fantasy. So I started checking out Starfinder, and I got a little interested in Pathfinder. Through Humble Bundle, I had the old Pathfinder beginner box, but that one, I never had it as a physical box. Right now I'm playing Tales of the Valiant with my kids, and I wanted to do the Pathfinder beginner box as kind of a palate cleanser before we jumped into Humblewood 2 Beyond the Canopy as our next 5e campaign. And as I was setting out my budget for gaming this year, I had said probably springtime would be about the time to get the beginner box. That's about the time we might be done with our Labyrinth game. And just before I went to buy it, maybe 1 or 2 months ago, I found out that they were going to be coming out with a new beginner box. So they have one here called Secrets of the Unlit Star, and you can see it here on my desk. And part of what's supposed to be better about this one is that the first game was very combat focused. This one's supposed to focus on all the different elements of a Paizo, or really any RPG, meaning also social encounters, also some kind of victory points or cinematic mode or something like that. And so I said, perfect timing. I will get the beginner box, the new one. Around the same time, I learned that the way, every RPG company, they handle their PDFs or non-physical releases differently. With Wizards of the Coast, there are no PDFs. There's D&D Beyond, and there's the physical books. And so typically if I'm getting something from D&D, I will get the D&D Beyond as well. There's a little bit of a discount. Kobold Press offers a discount where they have, if you get the books together with the PDF, it's usually approximately the same type of discount as you get with D&D Beyond and the physical books. For Paizo, what they do is, if you do their subscription, then you get the PDF for free. And that is the cheapest way to do it. Since I knew I wanted this anyway, I went ahead and signed up for the subscription that would give me the beginner box, which is why, depending on when I finally get this edited, you may see this before it's available at retail. So what I wanted to do was to have a unboxing and a first impressions video, and a few months from now, after I've played the beginner box with my kids, or if they're entirely opposed to it, whenever I've played it with whoever I've played with it live, I'll do an actual review of how well does this work to introduce somebody to Pathfinder. So this one's going to be an unboxing, a first impressions, and then we'll have the actual review later, right? So the first thing I wanted to do was, when I first got into D&D about 4 or 5 years ago, it's because my kids, they had played with my brother Dave over one Christmas break, and then out of nowhere they said, "Hey Dad, can we play D&D?" And I was like, I don't know how to do any of this. And so I bought the starter set. At the time, this was the D&D Starter Set, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. The new starter set looks amazing. It's card-based, kind of seemingly drawing inspiration from Daggerheart, although it's entirely possible that with the production deadlines, they may have started way before Daggerheart. I'm not entirely sure, but it puts me in that mindset of using physical cards to create your characters. I think there's a lot of benefit to that. I think having something tactile really brings it all together, because even for someone like me who had been playing JRPGs for about 15 years, since I was about in middle school, this was still kind of a lot to handle at first. In fact, I recommend if you're starting 100% from scratch, not knowing how the new box is, but if you're starting 100% from scratch, I actually like the kid-focused D&D Adventure Club for their character sheets. They really bring it down to the absolute minimum that you need, and it reduces the complexity quite a bit. Now, that having been said, this is what I had to start with, so I kind of wanted to compare and see how does the D&D Starter Set compare to the Pathfinder Starter Set. Get the starter set that I had at the time. Again, I think the new one looks really cool, especially having the cards and stuff like that for the spells, for building your character. I think that's going to be amazing. One of the things that made the D&D Starter Set really hard for us when we were learning is we didn't know any of the spells or anything, and I was constantly flipping through to try and find people their spells. I hadn't thought of the concept of spell cards, which is what I do nowadays. I know you can buy spell cards, but I will kind of tailor make some spell cards for each of my kids. I'll copy them onto a program that's equivalent to Adobe InDesign, and then here's all your spells, and here's how they heighten everything, and it's awesome. They can just look at their spells right there. We're not spending time looking it up, and they don't have to memorize them. So what I'm going to do first is kind of really quickly go through my D&D Starter Set, and then we will do the unboxing for the Pathfinder and kind of do a little bit of a comparison. Okay, so taking a look at the D&D Starter Set, we have the Starter Set rulebook. This rulebook, it is pretty cool. It's basically equivalent to a very condensed version of the Player's Handbook. It does kind of minimize some of the things like the how to create characters, but that makes sense because they want you to go graduate from here to the Player's Handbook. But kind of going through, they kind of give you some terms. They tell you the rhythm of play. They tell you how the game goes. Again, reading this was quite a bit overwhelming at the time. You do eventually figure things out. And I do think that the first time I played Pathfinder, having already played D&D, which is another D20, and having played Cosmere, which is a 3-action economy game, I think it'll be a lot simpler for me than it was when I was going to D&D for the first time. But, so here we go. They're kind of describing the environment, everything. One other thing, again, that I will say for the brand new D&D Starter Set, it does recommend, it breaks the adventures into 3 smaller adventures, kind of one-shots, and it does recommend having different people take turns being the DM, which I think is amazing. That is not the case in this older one. But so it's kind of like explaining how things work, how rests work, how armor works. I think that as a kind of like condensed copy of the Player's Handbook, it works okay. I think as far as teaching you how to play, they could probably have condensed things a bit. This is showing you the way spells work in terms of their shapes. And then here are the actual spells. So again, I'm kind of like flipping through to find the spells. Okay, what is this? Okay, this goes for an hour. Oh, what does this mean? And so it wasn't the best way to do things. I'm glad that they've moved to a card-based system now. The next thing we have is the actual story itself, which is Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. Pretty thick. I will say we never actually finished the game, which is interesting. We ended up getting to chapter 2 out of 4 chapters, and the kids were kind of bored of it. They didn't like that they didn't get to create their characters from scratch. They felt that things were too slow because I kept having to look stuff up. I think if I could maybe bring them back into it now, especially being older, especially having played, they might enjoy it a bit more. But and this is pretty beefy. It's pretty good. It's got your maps and so forth. Some good art in here. And then we have character sheets. So these already they do explain some things like attacks and stuff like that, but they don't really explain the spells. Again, they do have you write the spells here. My kids wrote their spells on there. And I did go, I believe, on D&D Beyond and print out some of the maps that we would need. It does come with a few blank sheets that people could use. It tells you how to make the character yours, how to go up in levels, and so forth. Then an advertisement to keep going with D&D. And then it told you to go to D&D Beyond. And then the back part of this is, you see there's like a little thing to hold the stuff forward. And it did come with dice. Those dice are in my dice bag now. So that is the D&D Starter Set, for comparison's sake. Okay, the first thing I want to do before I unbox these is kind of compare them side by side here. You can see that in terms of length and width, they're about the same size. In terms of height, the Pathfinder one is quite a bit thicker. I'd say, let's see, if we stack these up, it's about maybe 1.25 to 1.5 times thicker. It definitely stands up there. All right, let me put this guy to the side. Get my scissors here to take off the wrapping. Let's look at the back really quickly. So it says, "Become a hero. Leave the ordinary behind and take your first step into a world of amazing fantasy adventure with Pathfinder Beginner Box Secrets of the Unlit Star. This box contains everything you need to learn how to play the Pathfinder role-playing game, including rules to create your own fantasy hero and tools to tell your own incredible stories. Will you be a mighty barbarian, cutting down your foes in a furious rage, or a nimble monk, darting in and out of the fray with precise martial arts strikes? Maybe you'll choose a bard's music, soothing and supporting your party, or channel the ancient magic of your bloodline as a powerful sorcerer. It's all up to you. This box set is the perfect introduction to the world of Pathfinder, including countless hours of thrilling adventure." And it says what it includes, but we're going to be taking a look at that. So here's interesting. This says ages 13 and up. The D&D box says ages 12 and up, which is kind of interesting. I wonder why. And it says 2 to 6 players. This one says 2 to 5 players. I think those things are really funny. I don't think they really mean anything, but I think it's kind of hilarious that a Pathfinder wants you to be a little bit older, and D&D says you could play with slightly more people. I think that's hilarious. And this says 1 to 5 hours. 1 hour is probably if they're like just flying through. So one thing I want to say right away is that according to the back of the box, that Pathfinder says that it will give you the ability to make your own characters, whereas D&D had the Pregens. I'm pretty sure they did not have a way to make your own characters, and they just had how to make it your own, how to make the characters your own. Now, I will say, I would probably encourage my kids to do the Pregens first, just to kind of not learn 2 things at once. Focus on learning the game instead of also learning how to make characters. But, you know, that may be a slight difference. All right, so opening this up, we have some extremely colorful dice. This is hilarious. I thought it was going to be Pathfinder green. These, and don't take this the wrong way if you are Paizo or if you enjoy Paizo, this looks like elementary school colors dice. That's really, really funny. It's like kind of like if you took the types of toys that my kids had when they were little, it's like the same colors. It's very interesting. But I will say, what I like about the fact that they've gone all these different colors here, let me bring all these up. So you see them here, see them here. So what I like about it is it does allow in the instructions for them to do both shape and color. Now remember, I'm coming to this having already played 2 D20 TTRPGs, the Cosmere and D&D. 3 if you count Tales of the Valiant. So all of this is fine now, but when you first start and you're like, oh, which one is the D20? Oh, which one's the 10? And you eventually you learn the shapes, but until you do, you're kind of like, okay, this one, what's the biggest number on here? Oh, okay, this is the 12. You know, oh, okay. And the 10 and the 8 are the most similar. Those are the easiest ones to kind of confuse with each other. So I do like, actually, that these are all different colors. If I look, so these are all my dice. I love dice, which is why I was hoping it was more like the Pathfinder style. But if I take out the dice from here, I want to say, based on my recollection, that no, these are a little too shiny. But the D&D dice, I wonder if they're in my dice box. No, well, they might be. Let me see if they're in here. Extra life. I love saving. Yes, these are my dice from the D&D box set. I'm like 95% sure. So these dice, they're all blue, a very nice, very pretty blue. This black one is my own different one. They've got these nice, easy to read, white numbers on them. They're a very pretty shade of blue. These are prettier dice. So I'll give that to D&D. These are prettier dice. However, for learning purposes, this Paizo situation is amazing. I actually do like that they're different colors. And then we've got a bunch of stands. This is already something really neat compared to the D&D set I had, which is you can actually play with standees, right? Minis, essentially, which the D&D didn't have. I think the new one does, or at the very least, the new one has kind of like little pogs, if you're old enough to remember what pogs are, little circles that you like push out. But this one looks like they have standees, which is great. It's kind of getting you into minis right away. I love that. So read this first. What is Pathfinder? If you on your own or if you have a group. Okay, another thing that's amazing right off the bat. And I knew this already from having seen the PDFs because, like I said, I was a subscriber. I had the PDFs for like 2 or 3 days already. And the other box also had this, the one that I got through Humble Bundle. So let's say you are super excited to play a TTRPG for the first time, and for whatever reason, you pick Pathfinder. That's who even knows how that happens, because the same way that when I was a kid, Nintendo meant video games. Like if my parents said turn off the Nintendo, we could have been playing Genesis. They still meant stop playing video games. To most people, tabletop RPGs is D&D. They've seen Stranger Things. They've seen that Tom Hanks movie from the 80s. So I don't know how the heck you end up with Pathfinder first, but you get Pathfinder. You're super excited to play. Crap, I need to get a group together. I'm going to be the DM, right? And now I got to find 4 more people to play this game. Now I got to... But I'm excited. I just bought this today. Well, you can play the solo game if you're on your own, and there's a solo adventure in here. That is so cool. But if you have a group, they've got the group stuff. So if you want to start right away, they've got the pre-made characters. If you want to make your own character, they have the stuff if you want to be Game Master. So again, I think that's awesome that they show you how to make characters right away. Now, Paizo and Wizards of the Coast have very different ways that they look at their, and I hate this term, IP, their intellectual property. All of the rules for all of Paizo's games are available for free on Archives of Nethys, and it's not free in the sense that you could get music for free or you can get movies for free if you go looking. No, this is actually their policy. They make money with Adventure Pass, with boxes like this. They don't make money on the rules. That's not the way they want to make money, at least so far. So they have all the rules in here, supposedly, to make your character. So that's really cool. So on the back, okay, here we go. So here's the components. So we've got the Hero's Handbook, the Game Master's Guide, 6 blank character sheets, 4 player reference cards, the die, the pawn bases, the monster pawn and character pawns, those are the standees. We've got the Pregens, and then we've got a Flp Mat, which is a double-sided map. So that's another thing that the one from D&D didn't have. I had to print maps out from the web, and they were kind of GM maps. They weren't maps to play on. So that's really cool. So now we've got these player reference cards on here. So it looks like there's one for each player, and they said up to 5, what was it, 5 people? Up to 5 people can play, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They actually gave you 6. So what I like about this, now I will be, again, to be fair to Wizards of the Coast, who I'm comparing it to, this information was on the character sheet. in the different individual sections. But I do like that they have this that they can keep to the side. They don't have to keep looking on their sheet to see where it is. So it tells you about the checks. One different thing with Paizo games versus the 5e games is that you can crit if you exceed the DC by 10 or more, not just on a 20. And you can crit fail on less than 10, not just a natural 1. It tells you what DC actually means. It gives you it tells you have 3 actions. So you can, I imagine you can kind of put like a little something on top of this to block them. Okay, I've done 1, I've done 2, I've done 3. Reaction. It tells you what your normal things are. Drop, prone, interact, leap, seek, stand, step, stride, strike. And on the back side, it has the conditions. So it tells you about concealed, dying, frightened, grabbed, off guard, persistent damage, prone, restrained, slowed, unconscious, and wounded. To be fair, dying, unconscious, and wounded, it says to go to the hero's handbook so that they can fit everything on a oversized index card. All right. So next up are the pregens. So Lem the Bard. So these pregens are their iconics. I think D&D kind of has a concept of this. The company I'm used to that has more of a concept like this is Kobold Press with Tales of the Valiant. They've got the Valiant 6, and then for the Player's Guide 2, they have another Valiant 6. And so for those characters, not only do they have backstory, but they also have pre-generated character sheets that can be used. As far as I know, Wizards of the Coast, the most they have related to that, besides the one that comes in the box, is they have some for the characters from the movie that came out a couple of years ago. Paizo, they actually, in addition to TTRPGs, they also have short fiction and regular fiction using these characters. So you see these characters like all over the place. D&D doesn't really have that. With the 2024 edition, they kind of brought in their characters from the cartoon, that old cartoon from the 80s or 90s. But anyway, so, another thing that I love that Paizo does is they say, play a bard if you want to, and they give you the things you might want to do. This is also in their player core, which is what they call their player's handbook. And Kobold Press has something similar to this, but I feel that of the 3 companies, Paizo does this the best. I think they're really good about telling you which type of class you might want to play. When you open, is this just really thick paper? No, it opens. Okay, so when you open up, okay, so again, I knew this was coming because I have the PDF, but you see here the dice, they're the colors that match these colors. Yellow triangle, purple square. I know I'm saying the 2D shape instead of 3D shape, but you know what I'm saying. So it's kind of, again, building that association using color and shape. I think that's awesome, even though even though the part of me that loves dice hates this color scheme, the part of me that loves this as a teaching tool, which is what this is, and a lot of times the starter guides forget that they are a teaching tool, I think that's amazing, okay? So looking at this here, it's all filled in, and then there's A, B, C, D, and so on. So over here, it explains what it is. So ancestry, oh, that's your ancestry. Halfling, okay, I've heard of those. I've read Lord of the Rings. And then over here, we've got the spells that they can do, checkboxes for the 2 they can do, cantrips. And then the back tells you about the iconic, about Lem, the halfling bard. And then here's some advice for playing a bard. Again, Paizo does this better than anyone else. It doesn't mean Paizo's the best, okay? Let's not be that kind of internet people. You play what you enjoy the most. What I'm saying is, when it comes to this specific detail, Paizo is amazing. We've got Seoni the Sorcerer. I'm not going to open each of these. They're all basically I'll open one more, but they're all basically the same thing. So again, here's your spells, stuff like that. Again, here's the die explaining the action. Okay, I'll do a criticism to Paizo. What I hate, and unless I'm misremembering, Cosmere does the same thing. What I hate is that one action is technically 2 things. It's a diamond and then an arrow. That's 2 things, but that's one action. 2 actions is 2 arrows, but 1 diamond. It's technically 3 things on the paper. Something about that really doesn't work with my brain, and I hate it so much. So one negative on Paizo in terms of learning. They've done all these colors, they've done all this stuff, and then they did that. Ugh. All right, we've got Amiri the Barbarian. We've got Sajan the Monk. And again, a biography, advice for playing the monk. What's next in the box? We've got, ooh, oh, wow. Okay, so this is the Hero's Handbook. This is what you give the players. It's bound. It's soft cover, and it's bound. This looks like a product. Let me show you by comparison from the D&D Starter Set. This is just stapled paper. This is not, it's fine, but like, it feels more like, all right, we'll throw together a kit so you learn how to play D&D. This is nice. This is really nice. All right. I love how that looks. Like, I could put this on my shelf just by itself. That is chef's kiss. Good job, Paizo. So this is what the players would use. So it starts off with character creation summary, which is nice if you want to make your own character. It's got the solo adventure, if you're going to play your solo adventure. Then it tells you for skills. And then you've got playing the game. So this is basically everything that your players could possibly need. Oh, it tells you a barbarian, a bard, a monk, all the stuff they could use. That is really, really great. Weapons. Awesome. This is really cool. I really like the quality of that. That is amazing. Oh, and on the back, quick rules reference. Very similar to what's on the little index card for the players. So then after that, some blank character sheets. And the A, B, C, D, and so on matches what's on the ones for the iconics. Again, you've got the dice matching colors. So that's reinforcing that for the players. We've got about one for each person. I believe you can probably print this out directly from Paizo. If not, it's a missed opportunity because this doesn't really cost them anything, and I wouldn't want to use the only one I have. I do like that it has the dice on both sides, so you don't have to keep flipping over if you happen to be looking at your spell casting, which is what's on the back. All right, then we've got the Game Master's Guide. Again, nice and bound. This could go easily on a shelf. I love that. That is amazing. Very cool. So this is, oh yeah, this is the Game Master's Guide, right. So let's look here. And this tells you how to game master. There's a map right here. And then it tells you how to build adventures, hazards, kind of like a little bit of an intro to becoming a game master. And so as you go through, here's everything you need for the adventure itself. And then just tells you how to be a game master. Here are some items, how the items work, and all that stuff. Here are some bad guys like a basilisk, a boar, a bugbear. I always find it interesting for a lot of these fantasy characters that are not special to Wizards of the Coast to compare how Paizo draws them versus how Wizards of the Coast draws them. That's always very interesting. All right. What's next? Okay, so this is the Flp Mat. It's huge. I'm not going to unfold it right now. But if it's anything like their normal Flp Mats, they're made of a special coating that lets you draw on there with dry erase or wet erase, which is really nice. And then rounding things out, ooh, all of these double-sided character pawns. Again, monster pawns, character pawns. I love that. As someone who, oh, okay, so they do have for the players to use their sheet to mark off how many actions they've taken. So I did think there would probably be something like that in here, and there is, which is really awesome. And then they tell you about the Pathfinder Society, which is their thing where you can basically go to your local game store and play with others. There's probably also the ability to do it online. Troubles in Grace continues the adventure from this box. And then we've got the player core, the monster core, the player core 2, and the GM core. So pretty beefy, pretty amazing, and definitely a lot more and higher quality materials than in the one that I had from Dungeons and Dragons when I was first teaching my kids how to play. So I think that's pretty good. They've done a really good job here giving you what you would need to teach people how to play. All right. These dice will get to join all my other dice now. All right. I think that's it. Like I said, this was kind of my first impressions. Oh, you know what? Let me give my final first impressions. So this basically gives you everything that you would need to introduce somebody to Pathfinder. On the one hand, extremely high quality compared to Wizards of the Coast. Teaches you a lot. Love the die for teaching purposes, not as dice. I mean, look at these other dice. These are incredible. That one doesn't compare. But, you know, it does what it needs to do. Again, the stuff being bound is awesome. It could be the beginning of your TTRPG bookshelf. It's awesome. It would look really great on the bookshelf. I think that's great that they bound it. It makes it look like a real product and not just something like, all right, you wanted to learn, here you go. You know, which is the more slapdash nature of the Wizard of the Coast. Again, acknowledging that their newest one does kind of get rid of a lot of the stuff that's bad here. They do have, not standees, but they do have, again, POG-style tokens that you can use on a map. They do have the character cards that help you build a character, whereas here we're kind of sticking to the old school thing of teaching you a real character sheet. Pros and cons, at some point you've got to take this step and graduate up to a real character sheet. But, you know, I could see going either way. I just the quality of this, though, is extremely top-notch, and it's pretty incredible. So that was my first impression, my unboxing. My idea will be once I actually play, I'll come back and talk about how it went, how good it did its job at teaching how to play. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.